so what do? I create a page that will encapsulate all the meeting minutes together, and then the specific meeting minutes will be child pages thereof. So let me show you what it looks like. All right, so we go here. Let's see, where am I? Go back to my space, and this is the one. All right, so see how I've got a page here, meeting notes. So this is the overall sort of parent page, and I have a little button here to create a new meeting note. I can see any incomplete tasks from all of the meetings. I can see what was decided in every meeting, and I can see the list of meeting notes down here. So it'll keep growing, and I can quickly navigate to them. So every meeting note that I create is going to be a child down here. So let's create a new one. Okay, so here's a new meeting notes. Let's just say test. Publish that. Here we go. All right, now you'll see that if I go back to my meeting notes and I hit refresh, I now have 2 meeting notes in the list there. So what are the different macros that are making this happen? Well, the first one, the button, is a create from template. And the template that I'm using is the one that I identified before, right? So that was the meeting notes template. The task report is here to display incomplete tasks. I've got a decision report down here displaying all our major decisions. And then I have a children display down here. It displays all of the child pages in reverse chronological order. So am I done? Well, I think I could do a little better, and let me explain. So I've got my list here of all the meeting notes, but it's kind of bare. It just has the list. Can I do something better than that? Well, yes. In Confluence, there are these tags. They call them labels that you can attach to pages. And if you have these tags, these labels, then you can report on them. You can do things with them, and many of the macros use them. So it turns out that this template that we used, that we saw here in the list of templates, was great, except for one thing. It let me go back here. Duplicate. The one problem with it that it doesn't have any labels. So when I went to this template here, meeting notes, you see these meeting notes here, there's no label there for me to grab onto. So that is an issue. So how do I fix that? Well, turns out what you can do is you go to your settings once again. Unfortunately, you have to do this as administrator. So you'd go back to your settings here. Let me go into here we go, settings, hit the sprocket. Then I go down a little bit to the, where is it? Global templates and blueprints. So what is the difference between a template and a blueprint? Well, a blueprint is a template provided by Atlassian, and we can edit them. So if I go down here, I can see I can keep scrolling down, or I can just search meeting. Okay, keep going. There's a couple of them. There we go. Meeting notes blueprint. And you can see it's already edited. So essentially what you do is you click the edit button. And what you then do is go to the 3 labels on the right-hand side and say edit labels. So that's what I did. I basically went here and I added a label and I called it meeting-notes. So why did I do that? I did that because I can then use a different macro. So check out this new macro that I can use in the bottom called content report table. So if you edit this macro, you can see that essentially it needs a label. And so this label is meeting-notes. And the nice thing about it is it's a little bit nicer display than just children display. And the other advantage is it will find these meeting notes wherever they are. They don't even have to be children, as long as they have that label in them. Now, I like to keep them as children just to keep them organized, but it'll show their title, the creator, and the modified date. So let's go ahead and look and see what that looks like. There it is, all meeting notes, the better version. And you can see here in my left-hand side that here's the meeting notes underneath their parent there. So that's basically yep, here we go. So essentially, this is how you use a template, customize a template. Now, I won't go into creating a brand new template. That would probably be its own 30-minute presentation itself. But most of the time, you can find a template that's really close to what you want, make it a few tweaks, and you're all good. So that's the main thing. Automation. So one of the interesting things here is we have action items. So let's take a look at the action items here for this meeting that we just held. This is a real meeting that we just held for our notice. Can Ariel use Teammate Plus, or should we use Confluence? So that is an action item to figure that out, and it's due Friday, October 13th. It has not been done yet because there's no check mark there. So notice in the parent page, I have a macro called task report. So the task report collects all of it. See, all you have to do is you just tell it the current page, and it just automatically collects all of the incomplete action items from all the child pages. So you can see that action item is showing up right here. So what I've noticed in the past is some of these action items can get kind of left behind and forgotten about, right? Even though they're showing up here, and yes, we should be looking at this page. Maybe they're not looking at the page. Maybe they were assigned an action item. They weren't even part of the meeting, so they don't even necessarily know unless they were app mentioned. Not everyone is a Confluence user, so you cannot necessarily app mention those people. So how would we do that? Well, there's this thing called automation, and it's part of Confluence. If you I think it's part of all, maybe not the base version, but it's the enterprise version. And essentially, what you do, once again, you have to be the administrator. You go here to, where am I? Let us go to cancel, go to the sprocket again. You go down to automation. See this global automation? And it turns out that you don't really have to figure this stuff out. There are already a whole bunch of automations right there for you to use. You see the templates? So it turns out that there's an automation right here that says, remind teammates about incomplete tasks. So it's already built. All we have to do is turn it on. And what it's going to do, you can see the details here. And again, I won't go into automation. That's another 30-minute review all by itself. But you can see the main thing is here is every 7 days. So every 7 days is going to send out a reminder. It's going to see, by the way, see this email address? That's why you set the email address, because things like this will not work if you haven't set the email address like I showed earlier. So it'll send an email talking about you have an incomplete task. Here is the template for that. So we can change that, of course, to every 14 days or every 2 days or whatever it is. But essentially all we have to do is turn it on. So super easy, something that you can get more value out of Confluence. It's built in. It's right there. So why not do it? Okay, embedded Excel. So yes, you can do lots and lots of things in Confluence, but let's face it, we still use Office, Word and Excel and things like that. And you're getting these kinds of documents all the time. So how can we really view them in Confluence? Well, we can using the built-in macro. And there's a built-in macro for displaying that. Let me show you right now. So I just created another page called Risk Register. And what I did is I dragged and dropped the Excel sheet right into the middle of the Risk Register. And then I simply use a macro called Excel, Office Excel. And it's pre-filled. It just figures out, oh, there's an attachment on this page that's an Excel sheet. Would you like me to display it? And it's pre-filled with that. You just click OK, and it does take a little while, maybe 5 minutes, and then it shows up. And look at that beautiful display of your Excel sheet. Now, of course, you can't edit it; it's not perfect, but it does get you a display there, which is sometimes good enough. Obviously, it's a little bit painful. You have to sort of update the Excel sheet elsewhere and then keep reattaching a new version, but it's better than nothing. And I am currently we're looking into the Ricsoft Excel-like editor, which promises to provide full import, export, and editing. That should say export, not export, expert. So that's embedding Excel documents. So what about how-tos? So first of all, what are how-tos? Well, basically tips, tricks, and recipes for anything useful. And the cool thing about it is what I will typically do is create a collection here. And all the child pages will just be specific how-tos. And of course, the same way that we did for meeting minutes. By the way, where did we find those? We found those under the templates. So I can show you here, duplicate, templates, and how-to article right there. See, pretty nice. So it gives you a really nice template with you can just copy and paste and customized. So essentially, I call it here recipe, and I've already created a simple one for how to create a weekly status report. And this is just a simple, once again, a content. I'll show you here, content report table. All right, so let's take a look at them. So you can see here's a how-to that I made for Git, and one of the cool things about it, you can see that I have a couple of macros in there. One is just to display source code, which displays it in kind of a courier font, and also there's a really nice call-out box there with the green check mark. So and finally a table of contents. So anything where you use headlines, headline 2, headline 3. You can have a macro that says automatically create a table of contents. And I recommend that for any page that gets over a certain length. So I never add it to begin with, but as my page gets longer and longer and longer, eventually I just add a table of contents, and I make sure that there's that I'm using headline 2s and things like that. So here's the macros that I'm using here, table of contents, info panel, that's this green thing. There's information, success, error, warning, different colors and things like that. And the code snippet is this one right here. So that's your how-tos. I always find how-tos useful in pretty much every project. How are we doing on time? Almost done. Okay, document references. I won't go into detail here, but basically you can put in links, active to editable content. So if you have a link to Dropbox, for example, you can actually add this link directly, and if anyone who's viewing it, if they have permissions to view that Dropbox folder, they will be able to click on that and bring it up in editable format within their browser. For SharePoint, it does require a plugin, but I think you can probably do the same thing. Okay, timeline, roadmap. That is a built-in. Pretty much every project needs one, so you can see there's our roadmap. So that's just a built-in macro in Confluence. Very easy. We put the kickoff, the entrance meeting, the final report. Simple stuff. My recommendation here is keep it very simple. You wouldn't want to have a very fancy, especially really big projects have a very big fancy roadmap. This is not designed for that. It's designed for something very simple, very high level, very quick. If you need something fancier, you use Jira, or you could use like Office Timeline Pro, which is a plugin to PowerPoint that I'm quite fond of, or some tool like that. Okay. Finally, last but not least, Jira integration. Wow, it just keeps getting better and better. Look at this. You can embed Jira issues. So check out my query here. Project is AWI, type is story, status is done and resolved greater than negative in 120 days. So what that means is find me everything that got finished within the last 120 days. So show me the recent stuff, what was recently finished. Of course, 120 is probably not that recent. It's probably want more like 20 or 10, but basically some really simple stuff here. Jira charts, the timeline, like I mentioned, the roadmap, lots of cool stuff. And Easy BI gets you even nicer reports. I did a report once where I compared actual cycle time to story points to see, like, does it really take us longer to do a 5-story point story than it takes a 3-story point story, things like that. Very interesting analysis you can do in EasyBI. I really recommend it. It's one of my favorite plugins. Okay, so and then the one essential plugin that I use every time, it's like the one plugin that I cannot do without in Confluence, is Glyphy. So yes, you can make diagrams elsewhere and you can bring them in as JPEGs or PNG or whatever files, but it's so nice to have a document that's just live and editable right inside Confluence, and Glyphy does a great job of it. So I'll show you my example here. It's in my FBI. So we did a project for the FBI, and we have in our architecture, we wanted to show our as is and to be. And there it is. So you can see it's just a simple, it looks just like, it works and looks just like Visio, but it's all embedded and you can edit it right there inside Confluence. So maybe later. Anyway, so let's go back to Confluence. You can see it looks just like Visio. All right, I use that for design diagrams, storyboarding, is kind of a human-centered design technique, and organizational charts, like org charts, to show your, your team structure and everything, stuff like that. Last but not least, glossary. It's just a simple table, but I find it super useful. In this FBI project, check out this glossary, like VGTOF. Who knew that stands for violent gang or terrorist organization? Okay, I certainly didn't know that. So chances are your organization has a lot of acronyms and you can spell them out here. So that's one of the essentials. All right, so that's pretty much it. I just wanted to give a quick, very, very fast overview of kind of the things that my go-to macros and things in Confluence that I use to create a team page. You can see them in action here. This is our FBI project, architecture. We even documented our agile process using some of the free diagrams that are available for Scrum and things like that. We had customized some of these because we had an online distributed team. So I wanted to explain that, yes, we were using these basic Scrum activities, but we had modified them. So lots of different stuff there. Really good ease of use. You don't have to do hardly any of this stuff. When I first started, I barely did any of them. Gradually, I figured out how to make parent and child pages where the parent was showing the child display, which was a really big improvement in my opinion. But what I always tell people is never make the perfect the enemy of the good. Just get stuff into a Confluence page. We'll fix it later. Just get that email, copy and paste it into Confluence. Get that Slack, copy and paste it into Confluence. Just make sure everything just gets there, and we can organize it later. So that's the kind of the biggest takeaway there. So it's not necessary to use Jira. Editing and documents, Office documents, still really not on par with SharePoint or Teams. Unfortunately, we're still not quite there. Hopefully, we'll get there someday. But at least you can display them nicely. And there are some extra plugins you can buy that close that gap at least somewhat. The only one plugin that I always use, and we're not affiliated with them in any way, I just really like it, Glyphy. And maybe partly because they have such a cute name. And then some tasks do require administrative privileges. You saw several times I had to go to the administrative page to activate an automation, to update and customize a template, and that kind of stuff. So, and adding a user to a group. So some of those things I wish they would kind of make a project admin or space admin feature rather than administrative. It has much deeper integration with Jira, so much deeper than ever before. And so really there's no reason not to use it for any team, whether it's IT or non-IT. And with that, I would love to see if there's any questions. Let me check my page here. How are we doing on questions? I'm wearing a Gliffy t-shirt right now. That's awesome. Macros. Okay, yeah, so I did get lost in the middle, but I got back. Okay, great. Yeah. Okay. Um, Moderator, any other questions that you see? Hopefully you didn't lose them. Let's see here. Okay, Q&A, here we go. Confluence versus switching to Office 365 SharePoint. Yes, yes. Well, um, if you're already a Microsoft shop and you already have all Microsoft tools, probably your SharePoint is, the nominal cost there is going to be almost nothing. So it might be difficult to justify Confluence. I get that. You have to choose your battles. But for me, I always prefer Confluence. Even the combination, they actually work well together. And many organizations do use both. But yeah. Lucid Chart, love Lucid Chart. I'm really a fan. Gliffy, I would say, to be honest, probably is not as powerful as Lucid Chart. Let's be honest. Let's be fair. But it's just the convenience of it that it's just embedded and so easy to use. So that's why I still use Gliffy, even though I do use Lucid Chart for many things. All right, release dates and workload information. I've created the Jira links in Confluence, but guests don't have a license. Dynamically update information to people. Yes. For people who don't have access to Jira, you might look into automations. I might be misinterpreting your question, but the automations in Confluence can automatically send emails and they can send Slack messages. So you could kind of do the work in an automation and just Slack people information without them having a specific Jira. Now, I don't know if the automation can actually reach into a Jira object and pluck out information. That could be a tough one. You probably would have to go to Script Runner. I would think Script Runner for Confluence could probably do something like that. That would be a really cool task for Script Runner. If you and they like those things. They have office hours and you can log in, and they're basically always asking like, "Hey, give us a really tough question for Script Runner to do." That would be a great question to ask them. Hey, grab some stuff out of Jira tickets and send it to a Slack message. That would be awesome. All right. So those are all of the questions that I see. I think we're done early, maybe. So if that's the case, then I think I'll give you back your extra time if there's no more questions. Otherwise, if feel free to raise your hand. I'm online now. Okay, fantastic. I guess we're finished.